On the Track is a web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
What's in this episode, Mr. John?
Well, Hennis, and by the way, that's the orange cat you can hear purring in the background. Well, Hennis, you want to know what's in this week's episode? Well, we've got Richard Freeman explaining why the big cat in last week's episode was actually a wild pig. And we've got Richard Freeman interviewing a dogman witness over on the Isle of Man. And then we have the irrepressible Ian Squibbs talking about Yorkshire sea serpents. Enjoy.
I really like the old credits.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and what's happening? There's something going strange to the fabric of time and space. I don't know where I am. It's very grim up here, so it must be up north.
So, Amos, what's happening in today's episode? Well, me chum from north, I'll tell you, we're going to be at Batley Working Men's Club, where there's going to be a gala luncheon. And what does that consist of? What's that consist of, the old mate? Well, it consists of proper northern fare. We're going to have tripe with vinegar, followed by a nice slice at parking.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and welcome to another episode of On the Track. For those of you not in the know, every Wednesday evening at 6:30 and every Saturday afternoon at 3 we bring you a sort of miscellany of hard science, weird shit and surreality. What's surreality? Well, why not ask Mr. Freeman. Those of you loyal viewers who watched last week's show will no doubt remember the labyrinthine saga of the lioness reported outside Berlin and the over-the-top reactions to it by the German authorities. We also reported on how, after a matter of days, people were claiming that it wasn't a lioness after all, and it was actually a wild boar. Here I'd like to say that something that really annoys me is when people refer to animals of the species Sus scrofa as wild boars, when only the males are wild boars, the females are wild sows, and the animal, the species in general, is known as wild swine. So, Richard, without misgendering the poor beast, and so we'll refer to it as some sort of general neuter wild swine fashion, why do you think that this picture, which seems to me to be unquestionably of a lioness, why do you claim that it is of a wild pig?
There are two factors in here that make me think that this is a wild boar. Firstly, it's the tail. The tail is far too short to be that of a lion. Domestic pigs have short curly tails, and that is a side effect of domestication. Wild pigs have longer straight tails with the tuft at the end. And if you look at this picture, you can see the entirety of the tail, and it's nowhere near long enough to be a lion's tail. The second thing is the angle of the back, the way it slopes down, and a wild pig has a sloping back like that, and the lion doesn't. It appears to have a short summer coat as well, so it hasn't got the shaggy appearance that they have in winter, but this is the middle of summer in Germany, so it's going to have the shorter coat. The sandy colour is quite normal for wild pigs as well, because they have a wide variety of colour variation from dark brown to grey to sandy coloured. So it's certainly not a lion or any kind of big cat, and it looks to me like a wild pig.
Now, I don't mind admitting when I'm wrong, and I think on this occasion I may well have been wrong. I can see exactly what Richard is saying and comparing the film of the lioness and the images of the wild boar with its tail. I can see the similarities, but also we pointed out something else that Izzy and I saw, was if you look at the image that we used of the wild boar, or the wild pig, or the wild sow, whatever it is, and realise that the face of the animal in the video is obscured, and so if you cut off the snout, which is long and supple, used for grubbing up acorns and truffles and things, if you cut that off, the face of the wild pig looks remarkably like some sort of big cat. Now, I think we're going to have to consign this story to the file marked close but no cigar. A few weeks ago, Richard and a bunch of friends from the Lapis group, which is based, I believe, in Lytham St Anne's in Lancashire, went to the Isle of Man. And for those of you who don't know, the Isle of Man is a sizable island in the Irish Sea between England and Northern Ireland. And although it is between two parts of the United Kingdom, it's not part of the United Kingdom. It is known as a crown dependency, which means it is ruled over by the king, but not part of the United Kingdom. He was spending most of his time, along with his compadres, looking for evidence for and against the existence of the one and only Jeff the Talking Mongoose of Cation's Gap on the Isle of Man. But while they were there, they followed up all sorts of other Fortean stories, including this man whom they met in a haunted theatre, who had a dogman sighting.
It must have been when I was about 11 years old.
Yeah.
So it's 39 years ago, and it was in a place called New Mills, which is in the High Peak District.
Yeah.
New Mills is well known for Swizzle's Sweets, Swizzle's Matlows.
Oh yeah, I know.
That's where it's
yeah.
made there, yeah. Brings everyone to a smile.
Yeah.
And I was a young kid, and I was up near the moors, playing up near Laneside as we did. And the two friends had already left, and it was just me. I was just about to head home. At the corner of my eye, I seen something, and to this day I will never forget it. And it walked across, and it had a broken back leg as such, you know, the legs weren't straight. It was bipedal.
It had like a dog-shaped leg.
Correct, yeah. It looked round at me once, and then carried on looking forward. And to this day, it looked like the face of an Alsatian dog. Now, we used to have Alsatian dogs our whole life. This thing was big. I mean, everything's big to you when you're 11 years old. but it was big and it was frightening, but it wasn't interested in me for some reason. Now, I was one of 3 people that had seen this. I don't know who the other people were, but someone obviously well-to-do reported this. Now, it got poo-pooed as a panther. I'm not aware panthers can walk on 2 legs.
No, they can't.
For a period of time. They may be able to go up.
Bears can walk on 2 legs, panthers can't.
This had shoulders.
Yeah.
Bears don't have shoulders.
No, they don't.
No.
That's why the Yeti isn't a bear.
Yes,
One of the reasons it's got great big shoulders.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
And the following day, it was in the Manchester Evening News and the local paper, which was called the High Peak Reporter. Police marksmen drove up, a team of police marksmen drove up onto the moors, up Marsh Lane, the lane where I said, and claimed they were after a black panther. I don't believe it. It wasn't a black panther what I saw. I know I was only 11 and I know I was a child. But when something that big walks past you on 2 legs, it gets your attention. It frightened the hell out of me. And it put the jitters up me that much, I didn't dare go out.
How tall would you say it was?
I was a child.
Yeah.
It was bigger than a man. It was bigger than a man, without a doubt. Now, I was telling my friends, and they were laughing and joking. We went back the following day, and there were footprints in the snow.
What were they like, the footprints?
Extremely elongated with a canine front. Now, I know we've had dogs our whole life. I know what dogs like in the snow. I know what dog footprints look like. It was like that, but a hell of a lot bigger. A hell of a lot bigger. And any time I tried to mention anything, oh, imagine it, I imagined it. I didn't imagine it. I know child's minds are very, very good, but you know, elaborating things and making things up and believing things. But for me to be able to still see that face turn and look at me and then carry on walking forward, wasn't interested in me in one bit.
And what did it do? Just walk off onto the moors?
I turned and ran. I ran.
And you say you think it might be responsible for some of the disappearing livestock?
Well, they blame the disappearing livestock on the mines. Because New Mills was an old mining town. Now, I lived there for 25 years. My back garden was the moors, was the mines area that they said. I never once found a mine. An entrance to a mine that uncovered over, an uncovered mine. I never found one once. We found a few small caves, as you do when kids, but then everyone knows about them because they're kids. Certainly the animals weren't going down there. Farmers, it's a big farming area. A lot of my friends at school, parents were farmers, and they would come in saying, we lost a sheep last night, we lost this last night. They would blame it on wild dogs, and then obviously they blamed it on the black panther. But I believe now, because not one of the farmers had seen. There was another story a few years later. Now my friend Gizmo was a punk who used to own the scrapyard, and he had a scrapyard dog. This was a mastiff. You can imagine how friendly that thing was. Yeah, it wasn't. He used to live back onto the moors. The dog was whining in the house, pacing up and down. He thought it wanted to go out. He opened the door. This was a mastiff, a nasty thing, that no one could go near, only him. He opened the door, the dog ran out, yelped, ran back in the house and shat on the floor in the kitchen, out of fear. He'd never seen his dog frightened before. Yeah, and that was the same moors.
And what was the name of the town again?
New Mills.
New Mills.
Yeah, High Peak.
High Peak. Oh.
Yeah, if you look for Swizzles Matlows, you will find New Mills.
Yeah.
And the place was called Laneside, at the top of Laneside.
Laneside. Wow.
Yes.
Well, I can tell you things like this have been seen on both sides of the Atlantic since at least the 1930s.
Yeah.
At least.
It's something that stuck in my mind, and I wouldn't go out again for a long time at night. It was only until I was an adult I would then go out on the moors walking again. Yeah. As soon as it started getting dark, that was it. I was gone.
Yeah. What's your name again, mate?
Darren Hardacre.
Darren Hardy. Fantastic. Well, thanks for that, Darren.
No problem at all.
Ian, how lovely to see you again. Now,
Hello, John.
you usually lurk around the shores of Loch Ness, but now I believe that there's trouble up mill, or rather trouble up on the Yorkshire coastline.
That's right, John. And it's good to be back on CFZ TV for some more unexplained mysteries of time, space, and mind. Well, we've all heard of Yorkshire, and we've all heard of Nessie, but how many of us have heard of Yorkshire Nessie? Not many, I'll wager. So today we're going to take a look at this lesser-known player from the annals of cryptozoology. So let's begin. During the 1930s, Britain's northeast coast was regularly visited by a mysterious sea monster. At least this is what many witnesses attested to at the time, including a former Lord Mayor and two well-known Labour politicians. The press enjoyed this recurring silly season story, and the creature was dubbed the Humber Monster and the Within Sea Visitor by various newspapers. So let's head to the northeast coast of England and have a look at some of the tall tales of the elusive Yorkshire Nessie. Located near Filey on the North Yorkshire coast is a rocky peninsula that juts out into the Grey Sea known as Filey Brig. The area is rich in history, biology and geology, and is also steeped in myth and magic, with numerous legends associated with it. One such legend is that it was created by the devil, and his handprint can still be seen there. I have my doubts about that. But what we'll do, we'll have a look at a picture of Filey Brig, and we can see it there jutting out in all its glory.
It's a strange looking place, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of a natural pier, but yes, certainly somewhere where a mystery is likely to lurk.
And where's the devil's handprint?
Exactly. That's just what people say. I've been looking for it. I can't actually see it. That's why I'm not too sure it is actually there. Could be the devil's finger, perhaps. But that's what the myths say about that. From the Middle Ages, there are tales that a dragon dwelled there in a tidal inlet known as the Gully. The dragon was said to be very fierce and mighty, but it had a weakness, which was cake and sticky cake.
That's my weakness as well.
Yeah, along with the dragon. And maybe Komodo dragons, they're quite vicious, aren't they? Have people tried to calm them down with cake, perhaps, like this dragon? The dragon apparently could not get enough of it, and villagers would use sticky cake to lure the beast away. The dragon was slayed when he got his jaws stuck together from all the cake, giving the villagers an opportunity to kill it. Another version of the dragon's death states that the dragon died from overeating too much cake, then fell into the sea. Rumor has it that the dragon's skeleton forms part of the Filey Brig, though this is yet to be proven. Okay. All right, okay. That's just a myth, a bit of fun, if you like, an old wives' tale, yeah? But passed down from generation to generation. But it's interesting that in this area there is a history of sea monsters as we move on to the more contemporary accounts of Yorkshire Nessie. So, let's begin. On Wednesday, August the 30th, 1922, a Grimsby steam trawler named Chandos had a run-in with a sea serpent in the North Sea about 35 miles out from Spurn Point. The crew, who had sailed from Grimsby that morning, believed that they were initially seeing two brown sails from two inshore fishing boats, so approached them at a steady rate of knots. Upon approaching, however, They realised that they were not actually looking at sailing vessels, but were instead looking at the large dorsal fins of two very large unknown sea creatures. The unknown fish swam off into a southerly direction away from the steam trawler, leaving the crew baffled. They estimated that the creatures were 50 feet in length, and the skipper claimed that in all his experience at sea, he had not seen their like. The baffled skipper continued, they were neither sharks nor whales. By Thursday, August the 31st, 1922, the local newspapers carried the report, and the story even made it into the Daily Mirror. And we can see an actual snippet of the report in the following picture there. We can have a look at that. Unknown fishes in North Sea. Grimsby crew's strange story. And there we go. So, reports continued during this period, with eyewitnesses coming from Hull, especially trawlermen, and from holidaymakers at Spurn Point, Eastington, Hornsey, Withernsea, Flamborough, Filey, and Whitby. But it was in the 1930s when reports of Yorkshire Nessie really gained momentum. So, on Wednesday the 3rd of January 1934, the Dundee Evening Telegraph reported the following. There was excitement in Filey today when it was reported either that the Loch Ness Monster had found its way to the Yorkshire coast, or that Filey had developed a monster of its own. This morning, a stroller along Filey near Scarborough reported that he had seen a huge body with numerous humps and a small head a short way out into sea. A search of the covering Filey Brig and North Bay proved fruitless, but further north, near Grinthorpe Bay, there was more excitement when a supposed monster was seen 200 yards from the shore. When it was approached, however, the long line of humps separated and the monster proved to be a school of large porpoises in a line. So, bit of a shame there. In February 1934, a report surfaced when it was revealed in the Nottingham Evening Post that a feud had broken out between Grimsby and Cleethorpes fishermen. Both had reported that their trawl nets had been interfered with. Both parties blamed each other after fish caught in their nets and on their hooks had been wrenched off. Such was the description that both Cleethorpes and Grimsby ports had night watchmen employed to keep an eye on their nets and their hooks. The missing fish was then blamed on Yorkshire Nessie when a mysterious creature was observed at sea. One witness claimed it was bigger than a motorboat and had a tree trunk neck, while another described small eyes, a big head, and a long raking body with 2 bumps on it. So, yeah. On the 5th of February 1934, the Hull Daily Mail picked up the story saying, fishermen at Cleethorpes are convinced that the monster had been robbing their lines is a giant seal. One who claims he has seen it twice during the weekend described it as looking exactly like a seal, but says it's a very long one, about 8 feet long. Other fishermen who claim to have seen it confirmed this view. Whatever it is, it has a voracious appetite, and yesterday, when a young fisherman went to examine his lines, he found they had been torn clean from the buoy to which they had been attached. So, yeah. On the 6th of February, 1934, the Daily Mirror ran a story in which they claimed that Grimsby fishermen were on the trail of the Humber monster. W. Croft, a fisherman of Royston Street, Cleethorpes, reported that his 2 sons saw something large and unknown in the vicinity of his fishing lines. He described it as having ears and a mane, but added that it was away under the water before they could get a close view. Then, the apparent culprit was caught. On the 7th of February 1934, the Nottingham Evening Post ran this story. The Humber monster killed. Bridlington fishermen believe that they have solved the mystery of the monster, which was reported to have been seen off the Humber and is stated to have dragged fish off the fishermen's lines as the lines were being hauled in. The crew of the fishing cobble, Cutty Sark, yesterday arrived at Bridlington with a seal weighing over 16 stones and measuring nearly 6 feet long. One of the fishermen, Bill Glenton, stated, "We were fishing some distance out into the bay when I felt something heavy on one of the lines. The weight of whatever I had caught had taken the line right under the boat, and I did not know what it was pulling in. Suddenly I saw a huge head appear at the side of the boat, and I nearly let go of the line with surprise. First, I did not know what it was. I thought of the Loch Ness monster, but when I saw the whole body, I realized it was a large seal. With the help of my brothers, Bob, Jack, and Collins, the other member of the crew, we dragged the seal aboard with a gaff and killed it. The arrival of the seal at their pier caused considerable interest, and it was later sold to a Scarborough fish buyer and taken to Scarborough. However, not everyone believed that the monster was a large seal, and the Nottingham Evening Post followed up the report with the following. A Cleethorpes fisherman, Mr. William Croft, says that he has been fishing here for 51 years and he knows seals and porpoises well enough. He refused to believe the news that the Bridlington catch was the monster and had been robbing, and that was who had been robbing the lines of fishermen in the Cleethorpes area. He said that he and his two sons saw what would have been 6 or 7 feet in water with a head like a Great Dane. He added, it appeared to have ears and a mane. His neck was longer than a seal's, and his head was set differently. We saw the best part of 2 feet of head and neck above the water, and it was distant at only 50 yards. I should judge the creature to be 8 feet long. So, he didn't believe that the seal that was caught was actually the monster. Around this time, 4 Grimsby men, J. Porritt, J. Swan, and R. Hackforth, and G. Woods, were boating on the Humber, and when they described seeing a large sea serpent headed from Grimsby towards Cleethorpes, they described it as having humps that left the water and broken at intervals by hashes of black shining bottom. Okay, and on the 17th of February 1934, the Northern Daily Mail identified another potential suspect of what the sea monster may be and ran the following story. Hopes of a Filey monster disappointed. For a few minutes yesterday, Filey people believed that they were being visited by a monster, but their hope for the new attraction for the summer season was soon dashed. Mr. Titch Jenkinson, skipper of the Filey motorboat Heather, saw what seemed to be a huge creature when it was 2 miles from shore. It appeared to be resting near the brig. Other fishermen also noticed it and raced towards the brig. When they got near, they said, we found a huge seal, the biggest we've ever seen, resting on the rocks. The rocks behind it gave the appearance of a long body. When we got near it, the seal dived into the water and swam away. So, yeah. Certainly it might be a seal, this monster, but, you know, there's still hope. Also, in February 1934, 2 fishermen, Jack Thompson and his brother Jim, were out in a little rowing boat about a mile east of Redcar. As they checked their nets at daybreak, they were stunned to see a huge creature in the sea. Jim described the monster as follows. It had a head like a horse or a hippopotamus, big eyes and a broad snout. We watched it for about a quarter of an hour. It approached the boat, and when it got near, it plunged under the water, and we saw it no more. In all their 50 years of fishing, the brothers had never seen anything like this creature. Further down the coast, a fisherman in a boat near Cleethorpes was checking fishing lines when he was shocked his shipmates by shouting in fear and falling back into them. He could only point speechless in horror to what he had seen in the water. His mates rushed to the side to see the water swirling round and a huge black shape that vanished into the depths. Initially, the crew believed that the creature was a seal, but admitted they had never seen a creature, seal or otherwise, as large as this. In March 1934, both the Daily Telegraph and the Yorkshire Evening Post reported that local Coast Guard Wilkinson Herbert had an encounter with the monster on land. Mr. Herbert was returning from watch near Carnays on a path near the water's edge when he spied an object crawling over some black-looking seaweed and recounted the following. Last night, I was going along Filey Sands on duty. The rain had stopped and the stars were shining. In the darkness, I missed the top path to Filey Brig and took one near to the water's edge. Near Filey Brig rocks, I heard a growling like a dozen dogs ahead. Walking nearer, I switched on my torch and was confronted by a huge neck 6 yards in front of me, rearing up 8 foot high. The head was a startling sight, huge eyes like saucers glaring at me. The creature's mouth was a foot wide and the neck would be a yard around. The monster appeared as startled as I was. Shining my torch along the ground, I saw the body about 30 foot long. I thought this was no place for me, and from a distance, I threw stones at the creature. It moved away, growling fiercely, and I saw the huge black body and 2 humps on it and 4 short legs with huge flappers on them. I could not see any tail. It moved quickly, rolling from side to side, and went into the sea. From the cliff top, I looked down and I saw 2 eyes like torchlights shining out into the sea 300 yards away. It was the most gruesome and thrilling experience. I have seen big animals abroad, but nothing like this. Well, so that is an up close and personal sighting there. You can't really argue with, but it has been suggested that Hubert had seen a sea lion, and we can see such a creature in the next picture. They will just show that to the people at home. Here we go. There's the sea lion, and certainly has a sort of a Nessie-like quality about it, with long neck, flippers, hump. So yeah. Further north in Grinthorpe Bay, the monster was seen about 200 yards from shore. Much excitement was caused as a line of humps was observed in the water, but unfortunately it proved to be a false alarm, as the row of humps suddenly separated and turned out to be porpoises swimming in a line once again. In early August 1936, the monster was seen by 3 prominent politicians in Norfolk. Herbert Wiltard, former Lord Mayor of Norwich, Charles Amon, Labour Member of Parliament for Camberwell North, and his wife and children, and Archibald Gosling, a former Labour MP at Eccles. Wiltard described what he saw in the sea on that day as follows. The creature looks like a huge snake. It was at least a mile out at sea, swimming parallel to the coast. Its speed was terrific, from 90 to 100 miles per hour, would not be an exaggerated estimate. It disappeared very quickly on the skyline in the direction of Happinsburg. Charles Amon MP added that the creature was about 40 feet long and different parts of the body rose in and out of the water with the movement of an eel. Wiltard dismissed the idea that they were mistaken and had misinterpreted a line of porpoises and said, "The suggestion that we mistook a shoal of porpoises for the serpent is ridiculous. I am an old sailor and I know something about the habits of porpoise." Sightings of the monster off the Yorkshire coast continued in the first few weeks of August 1936. Mr. J. Barclay, owner of the Cliff Cafe at Shrewsbury, was an official coast watcher for the Board of Trade. He told the Leeds Mercury that he had watched the creature through a telescope from the top of Shrewsbury Cliffs for 20 minutes and stated, "After lying on top of the water, it would rush and dive as though feeding on something below." He described it as being between 14 and 20 feet long, looking like a huge black fish. And as sightings continues, thousands of visitors flocked to the coastal towns of Yorkshire in the hope of catching a glimpse of the monster, and many did. Monster hunters scoured the Yorkshire coast, and the creature had been given the name Slippery Sam. This name reflects the fact that the witnesses' descriptions of the creature varied so much, like a huge fish, like a serpent, like a horse, like a hippopotamus. And the fact that descriptions were so varied leaves the obvious question: were people witnessing the same thing? A number of explanations were offered in the press for the monster sightings. Some suggested porpoises swimming in a line would give the impression of the humps near the surface, although former Lord Mayor Whittard dismissed this explanation. Others suggested it might be a shark. Another explanation offered was that witnesses had actually seen a flock of birds flying close to the surface of the sea. Looking at a distance, this may give the impression of a long, undulating creature. Seals were another explanation, though these would be rather too slow to explain most sightings of the speedy monster. However, claims that the creature could swim at 100 miles per hour must surely be an exaggeration. The different descriptions and different locations suggest that witnesses had seen or misinterpreted a number of different creatures for the monster. Perhaps the most likely explanation for the majority of sightings was that it was a whale. We must also take into account that these sightings took place in the early 1930s. It was around this period that there was a glut of well-publicized Fortean activity. The Loch Ness Monster became world famous and was often on the front pages. Jeff, the talking mongoose, was making a name for himself on a farm in the Isle of Man. And Harry Price was throwing stones around Borley Rectory when no one was looking and saying that a ghost did it. The 1933 film King Kong has often been blamed for putting ideas into people's heads around this time too. So did Yorkshire want a piece of the action with its own monster? In mid-August 1936, a party of campers saw what they thought was an upturned canoe on the beach near Cleethorpes. On closer investigation, it turned out to be a stranded whale. The Hull Daily Mail picked up on this story, saying, "Loch Ness Monster and other resorts may claim to see monsters, but Cleethorpes catches them." So yeah, there we have the curious case of Yorkshire Nessie. Was it an unknown species of the classic sea serpent type, or was it just multiple cases of mistaken identity? We don't know. All we do know is that the nature of human perception means that if we look hard enough, we will see monsters, whether they are there or not. Thank you.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And there's the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little house, will tell you. Don't forget to ring the notification bell, otherwise you won't be told when the next episode's gonna be.
And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, at the end of another episode. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed putting it together. I want to say a big thank you to all the people who have helped with this episode, particularly my guests, Richard Freeman, Darren Hardacre, and Ian Squibbs, and a particular apology to Ian. I filmed him about 2 days after I came out of hospital for the second time with my heart problems, and my new medicine hadn't kicked in properly yet, and I fell asleep about halfway through the interview with him about the Yorkshire Nessies. It was not because I was bored, I wasn't bored at all, but it was because my blood pressure was so low that it couldn't keep me awake. Sorry about that. And so I'm going to be back on Wednesday. What are we going to be talking about on Wednesday? I can tell you. To start off with, we're going to be talking to Richard Freeman about his forthcoming expedition to Tajikistan. And then what's happening next Saturday? Well, next Saturday we're going to be in the Isle of Man with Richard Freeman and the gang. And we're going to be looking at wallabies, and we're going to be looking for Jeff the Talking Mongoose. But are you listening, Mr. McCrinnan? There's one more thing to say. But assuming that you're there watching, Mr. McCrinnan, on Wednesday and next Saturday, and I'm going to be there doing what I do and doing the live chat and all the other stuff, then, Mr. McCrinnan, I'll be seeing you.